This Week in Fantasy, my weekly NFL talk show returns, and it was a good week for me. I finally won. Naturally, it took until after September and after the Mets completely imploded for me to get that dub, but we finally got it. It was against Ryan's team, who was coming off of Tua being hurt, so obviously that was like a must-win game. So here we see it, and really it wasn't close. Ryan's team did absolutely nothing. Cooper Kupp did well, and that's about it. Jalen Hurts continues to be great. Melvin Gordon has the starting role down there in Denver after Williams blew his knee out. Najee looked fucking terrible, as does all of Pittsburgh. And my team again puts up low 80s, but this time I win for once. Clap 4 had a classic with Weston and lost it. What jumps out to me is Aaron Rodgers losing the game against the Giants. I think it's hilarious that some Giants fans are coming out and saying things like, historic season, oh, we're 4-1. We're going to make a run. They're going to start to falter very quickly, and the only reason they found success now is because they've realized that they should just be feeding the ball to Saquon Barkley. For years, when I drafted Saquon as a running back, expecting him to be an RB1, they'd give him 12 carries a game for 50 yards. No one else on the offense was explosive or talented. Now they're just straight up direct snapping it to him, doing jokish wildcat formations, doing anything they can to get Saquon the ball, which is great because conversely that takes the ball out of Daniel Jones's hand. It's a win-win. Deebo Samuel put up a touchdown. The Niners look good. Carolina looks terrible. Carolina cleaned fucking house last week after getting embarrassed by the Niners. At home, they fired Matt Rhule, who has a 7-year deal, so they're going to have to keep paying him or figure out some sort of jungle man Tom Dwan mitigation of the loss damage, because what a fucking disaster that was. This was a guy that was so hyped coming out of Baylor, and what did he accomplish at the NFL level before his college success in a division that was cratering, a conference rather, that was cratering in fucking strength, just going downhill, completely down the tubes, was the Big 12. Oh, it's like, oh yeah, I had some good seasons in the Big 12. Oh, when was this? After A&M left, after Mac Brown left UT, after, I mean, you can just go on and on. After Stoops left OU, the Jimbo Joke Fisher era, A&M's off in the SEC, blowing all the money in the world to go 6-6. And to me, what really jumps out about this is that Carolina really has a lot of egg on their face and are sort of looking like they're going to have to completely rebuild because this season's completely fuck you wucked. And there's a lot of talk about trading McCaffrey. And it's one of those things where if you go back 6 weeks, this was a team that showed some promise early on last year, especially before J.C. Horn went down. And whenever you had an established guy like Baker, this team was supposed to be at least average. This was one of those pass the buck and go 500 teams. Even if they didn't make the playoffs, the ceiling was supposed to be, you know, reasonably high, but the floor was really supposed to be pretty goddamn high. If you got Baker and Sam Darnold, you're supposed to go 500 with Christian McCaffrey and all the other weapons they have. And it was just a sickening display that got Matt Rhule canned. Which, as a Panther fan, you know, you sort of hope that that would have worked out. And of course it didn't. It was horrific. Jackson started Teddy Bridgewater, and the Miami quarterback situation is a fucking joke. Because after Tua got hurt, every dipshit talking head out there said that there was some sort of malfeasance, the kvetching was off the charts, the doctor was dirty, we've got to investigate the Dolphins. Just fucking walking in lockstep with these narratives. And if you think about that, it sets sort of a dangerous precedence because they fired the team doctor and they essentially lost the next week because of it. Because they were so scared of Tua getting re-injured, even though the new team doctor cleared him to play and he was good to go. They were just like, well, what if he takes another third hard hit and is doing the gang signs again? well, there's going to be like the biggest PR outrage ever, and we're going to have to clean house again. There's going to be another Dolphins lawsuit with the old coach. So what are we going to do? Oh, we'll just play the backup. Oh, well, the backup got hurt too. Well, I guess we'll just auto lose to the fucking Jets. And the most interesting thing about all these different shows, whether it be First Take or whatever you listen to, Pat McAfee show on AB listening out there, but when all these media shows marched in lockstep to agree with each other about the Dolphins being shady and duplicitous and a piece of shit organization, what you have to consider is who is going to ever hold the dissent opinion to that? Who's going to say, like, oh, well, Tua just wanted to play. Like, Tua wanted to play. He's an adult. He has, like, the right to do that. And he passed concussion protocol, and it was okay. Like, that person would just get ripped to shreds, and their character would be attacked, and they would be called all sorts of things, including heartless and all this other nonsense. So you have to consider whenever there are these big circle jerks going on, like, what's the dissent opinion? Like, something that cannot be fucking said aloud without being shot down. And the Dolphins lost because of that. They lost because of a circle jerk, basically. They lost to the fucking Jets because they were scared of the circle jerk. And here we have absolute shit tier managing by JP, who right after this would go on to drop Tom Brady after rostering 3 QBs forever. He starts 2 guys that were obviously inactive, and Spencer still lost to him. Thanks, Spence. Now this Joker is 5-0. AB absolutely monster-moded Seagouch. Geno Smith putting up 30, which is funny. And Josh Jacobs 25. You love to see that. And it was so funny to see the Raiders lose again. Flavor of the month team. Everyone in that division's going to go over 500. Is it possible for every team in a division to make the playoffs with the It's just like, some of the shit you heard about this division was crazy. You see this in baseball a lot, where when a team acquires a lot of new free agents, think the Reds a couple years ago, there's this huge circle jerk because there's the fucking off season and nothing's going on and everyone's bored and excited for the season. And they say, what about all these new pieces? They got X and Y. They got Adams. Well, it's not always that simple. It's not always a one-to-one translation. There is a such thing as coaching and team chemistry, which is a really big deal. And guess what? The Raiders don't have either of those things. The same with the Chargers, who might as well be coached by one of those like Twitch plays Pokemon, like Twitch chat, just like do whatever the fuck the first thing in the chat is. Because that guy, Staley, just basically flips coins the entire time. He's a fucking moron. He's like on an Adam Gase level, but it just goes to show like the difference between being in a New York media market and a San Diego, like wannabe LA media market. It's not LA. They still treat you like you're San Diego. Doesn't matter where you play. Doesn't matter what the team's called. Doesn't matter how much clout you chase. The only people that cared were your own fans that you snaked. The Chargers fans care. No one else fucking does. Tell that to the worthless Angels too. Mike Trout misses another fucking playoffs. Seagouch embarrassed here though. AB almost doubles the score. Kelsey 26, Lockett 22. Seattle's a lot better than a lot of people thought they would be. But anyway. Here we see Cam Joke losing to Aaron. Aaron needed this one. It's like 7 a.m. when I'm recording this. Adams finally had a good game in the loss, LOL 25. And Kirk Cousins got to play Chirac. And Chimera got to play Seattle. So this should have been a free win for Aaron. And look at this. Cam started an inactive guy. He forgot to hit the Snickers Optimize button. Classic. Showed up to the draft this year late as usual. And we're talking about next week. Alright, so I'm going to be taking on Spencer in this upcoming week. And some things to note. Kyler Murray is on a team that is very bizarre to me because Cliff Kingsbury was highly touted as the super talented, innovative offensive mind, sort of like a Sean McVay type. First 8 games of last season, they look great. Kyler Murray goes down, they look like fucking shit. They're an atrocity. They look like a joke in the playoffs. People write it all off to the injury. They just completely discount any of the bad performances and say, oh, it's the injury. Kyler Murray got hurt. What do you expect? Kyler Murray's been healthy since the end of last season. He got a big fancy new contract. And what happened? Well, not only have the Cardinals been fucking horrible, but their offense is atrocious. A lot of times when you look at a team like the Cardinals, who's supposed to be one of these like offensive juggernaut type teams, you say like, well, oh, they have a losing record. Well, what's going on? Were they shooting out every game and losing to teams 45-48? Because that's sort of like if they're gonna lose, that's how the game should look. It's like, no, their offense looks laughably anemic, and it looks like they don't have any good receivers, and Kyler Murray looks lost. When Kyler Murray takes a snap this season, he looks at his first read, and if his first read's not there, he just starts to run around confused. Sort of like watching a less athletic version of Jalen Hurts. Kyler Murray, and obviously you can't say it's like, oh, it's because of his height, because last year he looked fine. But it really does look like when he looks up to his strong side and like is looking for that first read and it's not there, and he turns his head, it's just like a wall. It's like all fog of war for him. That's how it looks like he's fucking playing. It looks like he's playing in fog of war this season. Nick Chubb looks great, and Spencer knocked it out of the park on that one. Hunt hasn't vultured too many touchdowns, and they haven't been too bad despite, the Jacoby Brissett situation. The Bengals being horrific and the Steelers being horrific is a really big deal in the context of their division, because the Ravens aren't really that good either, and I think Lamar Jackson and that offense has been figured out to a large extent. And he still has a lot of fantasy value, Lamar, but he's not the sort of guy that's going to carry you to a deep playoff run, and he's really not that consistent of a thrower to lead an offense. And I also think that they've just been sort of figured out, like build order wise. People sort of know how to play against it at this point. Speaking of which, I think it was funny the way that the Lions and Patriots game went yesterday, or last week rather, because if you didn't catch it, what ended up happening was the Lions were facing the Pats' third string quarterback. It was in New England, and a lot of people were speculating that the Lions were going to make it close because the Pats were starting their third string quarterback, which in a lot of cases is like an auto loss. Well, that's not what happened at all, and it just shows how smart that Bill Belichick is, because what Bill Belichick did is he said, look, I've got my third string quarterback here, and I'm playing at home, and I'm going to do a build order that I've done for years, that has literally worked for decades. Oh, we've got a home game, something's weird happening with the offense, like I've got Matt Castle or it's snowy, I'm going to run the ever-living shit out of the ball, control time of possession, and dominate on the defensive side of the ball, and don't give them many opportunities on offense. Well, what ended up happening was the Lions were shut out and embarrassed, and I know it's Jared Goff, but against the team's third string quarterback, you've got to at least queef out a touchdown. The Lions team was a sweetheart because of Hard Knocks, and people really liked them and liked Dan Campbell, and despite all the like, oh, we don't want to be what we were last year, rah stuff you saw in Hard Knocks, they're like right back to where they were. That 0-29 flogging was the exact sort of like mailed-in horseshit and net performance you would expect to see from the Lions of years past. And I think that that's like a really like disheartening, demotivating win, or loss rather, to make them go 1-4. It's like at that point you're sort of looking around if you're on the Lions like, here we are again. Even though Green Bay is shit in that division and the Bears are a fucking atrocity, taking that big leap with Justin Fields, what a terrible decision. I don't know how many more of these like obvious college quarterbacks who are like coin flippy, run first players who go on the fly and take a bunch of risk. I don't know how long we're going to see these guys taken as top NFL talents and burn out of the league, very obviously. And the Bears were so sure this was their guy, they traded up to get him. Same thing with Big Dick Mitch. Who the fuck is evaluating talent for the Bears? Who is the scout? Is there some dipshit in the boardroom going like, we need more season ticket packages this year? Some guy like, well, the team's shit. Let's trade up. Yeah, well, who's available? Who gives a fuck? We'll trade up. It'll be a me move. I don't know how you could look at Big Dick Mitch Trubisky, or especially Fields, and think that either one of those guys are the can't miss guy. We've got to trade up for him. This isn't a fucking quarterback they took in the 3rd round and are just rolling with. This is supposed to be the guy. How anyone could think that Justin Fields was going to be the guy at an NFL level is fucking baffling to me. But Amari Cooper, how has he done in Cleveland, you might ask? Well, you know, when he finds the end zone, he's been useful. He's broken 100 yards twice, but he's had a couple stinker games. And Spencer has not been very good at starting him on the right weeks. This is the sort of guy that will kill you in fantasy. He's solid one week and then horseshit the other. You're almost better off with a guy that gets you 8 to 10 every week, honestly. Because Cooper doesn't have that upside of like a Tyreek Hill. Like if you look at a guy like Tyreek Hill, he'll burn you some weeks, but he'll solo carry and drop 30 fucking 5 some weeks. So Cooper just not that explosive to warrant his lackluster play. But notice Spencer also has Chubb here, so he's sort of hedging. Like as long as Hunt doesn't score, he's gonna get one of those touchdowns when the Browns score, pretty much. So Jamar Chase, insanely dick road, super hype from last year. And he's been struggling on a team that has just looked like absolute garbo. Terrible offensive line. He really overachieved last year. And they're experiencing somewhat of like a sophomore slump in terms of, oh, we made it to the Super Bowl. Can we return? And they look like absolute garbo. And a lot of their assets look bad. It's a big part of why Seagouch is 0-5, is he has the quarterback and the running back on that team, Mixon and Joey B, and they've both been disappointing. Speaking of disappointing, George Kittle's done nothing but eat shit and get hurt. Look at this. I mean, this is a must week for Kittle. You're playing Atlanta, who's terrible. Just fucking depressing. Just really underachieving Kittle. Singletary versus Hollywood Brown. I mean, Hollywood Brown is getting the targets, but he's on an offense that looks pretty clownish. At what point do the Cardinals kick it into high gear and start to look like a high-powered offense again? It could be this week. They're playing Seattle, but I sort of edge in favor the mindset that they were always a little overrated and they're never going to like become the Rams. They're never going to have that elite offense, even if they showed flashes of brilliance last season. Matt Gay going against Carolina, he should absolutely eat up. Same with Darrell Henderson, who benefits from Cam Akers being hurt. And this is one of those things that you look at and you say, all right, you rostered Henderson and Akers all season and gotten screwed by him at every turn. This is like the whole reason that you did that, or you didn't drop one or trade one away for nothing, is when one gets hurt, the next one supposedly and in theory has a lot of value. Melvin Gordon, questionable going into Monday night. I don't know if I'm going to start him. I don't think so. And I think I might start Godwin over Sutton because they're playing Pittsburgh and Godwin's fully healthy and Pittsburgh's fucking terrible. We'll see, though. But anyway, this is one of those weeks where I've got to win. Great matchup with the defense against Indy. I think this will be a classic. I think it'll be 100-98. I'll give me the advantage. All right, Jackson versus Clap 4. McCaffrey's value is tanking. I just expect the Panthers to be like a train wreck from now until like at least 5 more weeks, with all the turmoil and nonsense going on there and the underachieving. Lamar Jackson's playing the Giants. That'll be an interesting matchup, because everyone's dick riding the Giants, and I really think that Baltimore is going to take that game down. Dalvin Cook gets the ball a lot. I really don't trust Minnesota. They really only beat the shitter teams. If you look at their schedule, honestly, might be saying New Orleans a shitter team. Yes, Sean Payton's gone. It's going to be funny to see if like the Cowboys continue to have this weird out of left field success, if they're still going to keep Mike McCarthy and not just go to Sean Payton like a lot of people have been speculating. Like, how well does Mike McCarthy have to do to retain his job? Like, second round of the playoffs? I don't think getting to the playoffs and bombing out again will be enough. Because frankly, last season was a disappointment, even though it was predictable. So CeeDee Lamb, this is a guy who has Cooper Rush throwing to him, and whenever you consider Cooper Rush, you have to consider how he looks compared to Dak joke. And it really goes to show how overrated Dak is that Cooper Rush has done as well as he has, and that the Cowboys have won all these games. Cowboys aren't that good, and I think Philly's going to prove that. If you're going to bet one thing this week, Eagles money line. The Eagles are going to beat the Cowboys. This is a Cowboys team that has really relied a lot on defense and slowing games down and getting turnovers, points off of turnovers. If you watch the games, they're winning ugly, honestly, and the offense doesn't ever really look that good. It looks about as good as it did with Dak. And this will come down to Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to run all over the Giants, and I'm going to give the edge to the commish. Lillian Weston. Mahomes in a should-be classic game, Buffalo and Kansas City. That game and Dallas-Philly are definitely the games to watch this week. I expect Buffalo to take that one down. Hopefully this game shoots out like fucking crazy, though. I don't know if that's like a casual NFL fan take to have, but when it comes to these two high-powered offenses, like, I want to see a fucking bloodbath. I want to see 35-42. I want to see like the deep bombs and the gimmick plays and the fantasy points out the ass. I don't want to see like no 10-7 game at halftime where both offenses are making unforced errors. I want to see them light it the fuck up, frankly. So I think Mahomes will do that. I think he'll drop 28. Aaron Rodgers is playing the Jets. Great matchup for him. That's a must-win game for the Pack, who have looked shitty. Rodgers loves to fucking bitch and moan about his lack of weapons. He's really missing Adams. And that offense looks anemic. Don't expect them to win a playoff game this season if they even make it. James Robinson should just run a train on Indy. He's eaten shit the last couple weeks. But if you're going to come back, Indy's the one to do it on. Justin Jefferson, thought to be a top flight guy, and he's ranked 3, so he's lived up to that. I think he'll have a good week at Miami. DJ Moore is a guy I'm low on. And the Jets look decent. I don't think the Packers defense is going to do that well. But I think with Debo playing Atlanta and the Mark Andrews against the Giants, I think West will take it down. Alright, Seagouch versus JP. Really need Seagouch to win, and it's projected to be a tie. Joe Burrow at New Orleans and Mixon. I actually think Cincy will win that game down in NOLA. The Saints are even worse than the Bengals. And the Bengals are getting to the point like my fantasy team where they just fucking have to win. I think New Orleans isn't really playing for that much in terms of like their expectations this season. Josh Allen is going to have a fucking huge game. Sanders will probably do decent versus Dallas. I just hope that my boy Jalen Hurts gets to run in those touchdowns. It's obviously one thing you have to worry about with Sanders is the quarterback vulturing those touchdowns. As everyone watching this knows, I'm going to give the edge to Seagouch here. But it's really rough with his receivers are garbage. Like Johnson's shit, and Smith is sort of inconsistent because he doesn't get that many touchdowns. Thankfully, the receiving core is just as weak for JP. That one should be close. Alright, Cam is trying to win against Austin. They're both 3-2. Very important game. Geno Smith starting against Arizona, which I kind of like that. And if you look at the bench here, AB really just trying to get to this point where he can start Hopkins and Watson. And whenever it comes to the running back positions here, Barkley's been great. Like I said, it's a guy that's just getting a shit ton of looks. And I expect him to have a good week, even though the Giants should lose. Eckler's on probably the most overrated team in the league, but has been fucking insane. And I think he'll do better than Kareem Hunt. Mike Williams, he's been consistent, -1 week. Been sicky though. Corey Davis. No faith in him at all. Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz, 2 solid tight ends. Obviously, Kelce has the edge. Tyler Lockett and Geno, so he's going for the discount double points. Again, like Arizona, super soft matchup. That's a really smart start. Brett Maher against Philly. I think he'll do okay because he'll kick like 3 field goals, but I don't expect Dallas to get a lot of points. And it's always good to start the defense against Danny Dimes. Although I think very soon, if the Giants continue to have success, Saquon Barkley will eclipse the amount of snaps received from Daniel Jones. So this one really is going to come all down to the Chargers game, and they're playing Denver in that vaunted fucking Denver defense. That's all you hear about from Denver fans, how fucking great the defense is. Now it'll be a toughie for AB, honestly. It'll be a toughie. I think Kelce pops off though, and Seattle does well against Arizona, and he barely wins. Alright, Ryan's game with Aaron. Ryan's quarterback trouble was solved whenever Bozo JP foolishly dropped Tom Brady. Good luck with that, Rampy. Rampy's still guarding Queef Cousins. And they're playing Miami, who's probably beat to shit enough for Cousins to do okay. Chimera, healthy, solid, really their best guy, but he's just getting screwed so hard by the Taysom Hill gimmick. Don't love that pick. That was the guy I was trying to stay away from in the draft. And Ryan's still starting Chicago's backup running back, Herbert. Thankfully, he got him 7.5, which is way more than can be expected, frankly. But he's also starting both the Cowboys guys, so this Ryan's team, I said it when the game first started, when the season first started, we're going to be talking about, herp derp, like it's going to be, how do the Cowboys do? And he's gotten insanely lucky. Like if you look at Ryan's team, like Cooper Kupp has obviously still been fucking amazing, literally rank 1. Like Pollard and Zeke have been way better than people thought they would be after Cooper Rush got hurt. When Cooper Rush got hurt, it was like, now all the Cowboys' weapons have 0 value. Hasn't really been the case. And honestly, even though he's 1-4, he's gotten sort of lucky with that. It's weird to see him start the Eagles' defense because it's like, well, you have the Cowboys' running backs, sort of conflicting win conditions. Tyreek with no Tua, you hate to see that. But I despise this receiving core. Lazard, who's not any good, and has fucking pan hands. And I know you're just trying to like gargle the drippings from Adams, but come on. And then Metcalf, like, okay, he's really strong and big, but has a shit quarterback. Dallas Goedert doesn't ever find the end zone. I just don't like either of these teams. I'll give it to Aaron though, 70 to 80. So there was the TWIF. I'll try to have a guest on next time. It's really hard to fucking do this when nobody like checks their roster until Sunday morning though. You can say like, do it on Friday, do it on Saturday, do it on Thursday. It's a fucking waste of time because everyone is inactive as far as like setting their rosters then, and you're sitting there going, I wonder if he'll start X, Y, or Z. And here I am, 7 a.m. The games start and not very long at all, and I'm doing TWIF. So if we look at the divisions here, Spencer's leading. I mean, this is an auto-win division for Spencer. Ryan and Seagosh's team are completely fucky-wucked. And Cam is Cam. Like, you can pencil that in as, how they'll put an X by someone's name if they're, like, won the division. Just put an X by Spencer's name. And Weston doing well as expected. Jackson kicking it around at 2-3, always dangerous. And Lilly again back. And then here, thanks to Spencer choking JP, The genius is at 5-0. Yeah, that's just fucking great. And AB at 3-2 with Aaron. And then I'm not doing well at 1-4, but my team isn't exactly shit, so. That was this week in fantasy. Let me just give my quick hit thoughts on the fucking upcoming matches. I already talked about the fact that Philly was going to monster mode the Cowboys. Niners and Falcons, give me the Niners. LOL, the Falcons aren't any good. Kyle Pitts is overrated. Pats and Browns, I actually give that one to the Browns. They run really well and it's in Cleveland. Jets and Pack, I think the Jets will make it close, but they don't deserve to win. The Packers aren't any good either. That'll be like a sewer game, honestly. Give it to the Pack, though. Jags and Colts, the Jags should monster mode them. The Colts are like overrated and fluky. And I think the Jags are sort of overrated too, but I think their defense and the running game is solid. Dolphins and Vikings, the Vikings are 4-1 somehow. The Dolphins should just pull people out of the stands to start at quarterback so they don't have to be culpable for injuries. It's a fucking ridiculous joke situation down there in Miami. When you look at the expectations of what people thought Miami's season was going to be like, think about 6 months ago, Sean Payton and I almost said Brett Favre, lol, I'm really tired. Sean Payton and Tom Brady are both going to fucking join. Oh, a lawsuit happened. Now you get more Tua. And Tony Soprano would say, now you got nothing. And they really do have nothing at this point. Yeah, they're 3-2, but this is supposed to be the dream season. They were a lot of people's sweetheart pick. Bungles and Saints, already told you I like the Bungles. Giants and Ravens, give me the Ravens. Really obviously give me the Ravens. The Giants are not going to make a fucking playoff run. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I told you I had seen a plethora of people saying stuff like miracle run and magical season and all this bullshit. People really were that browbeaten by Joe Judge and Gettleman. Steelers and Bucks, the Bucks will win that 100%. Mike Tomlin's been embarrassed without Big Ben to hard carry him. Panthers and Rams. Panthers are a joke. The Rams have not looked that good, but they'll win that game. Cards and Hawks. I think the Cardinals might choke. I think the Seahawks could make it a 2-point game, but I think the Cardinals will win on a last-second field goal. Bills and Chiefs, best game of the day. Give me the Bills, 41-35. Kappa. Cowboys and Eagles. I'm thinking Eagles 35-10. And then the Commanders and Bears played, and nobody cared or even noticed. Kirk Herbstreit was having to fucking apologize for it. It was so bad, and that is very often the case. Not just on Thursday or Monday, but I feel like a lot of the games have been pretty whack this season. Even if you're watching on Red Zone, a lot of it's pretty resident sleeper. Maybe that's because my team's horse shit, and I'm 1-4 though. Broncos and Chargers, two overrated joke teams. To me, this is a very uninteresting matchup. The Chargers should take it, lol. This week in fantasy, next week there'll be a guest Kappa, assuming I don't get engrossed with Overwatch 2 again. Easy.